Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Anita Fowler, sitting here with one of my friends from so many years ago, Camille Skipper. She is an attorney, and I'm just so excited that I don't want to get like lost in the sauce of what's running through my head. But we met several years ago, and I was always intrigued by her career as an attorney and what that looked like for African American women. And we're talking 30 plus years ago when I first met Camille, I believe. Right, Camille?
It was probably about 25 years ago.
Oh, that's good. Okay. That's good. And so I just excited. Tell me what's going on in California. How you been?
Well, the weather is good, which has improved things tremendously from all perspectives. I've been working from home for a little more than a year, which has been challenging. And I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, so school has been
Oh,
challenging. It has been a challenging year, but all in all, a good one, and I'm doing well. I'm just happy to be in a position where, I have a job. My job allowed me to work from home. I continue to make my salary and have continued to live comfortably because I know for so many other people that has not been the case.
well, that is one of your character traits is you've always been humble, and I've always been smitten by your humbleness. I was in the military, you an attorney, and I'm just kind of looking at things differently, you're looking at life another way. And I just find that it's so intriguing. And it takes us a while as women, like, to find our voice. You know what I mean? There are things in our life that happens that push us into the front line, whether we want to or not. There are conversations that I had that resonates that help us to find our voice. So, as just talk to me about how you found your voice in the career that you're in, and in as a woman in general.
Oh, I found it slowly. I think there were always people who were encouraging me and telling me, "Oh, you're articulate. You should get out in front." I grew up in church and where I was frequently the mistress of ceremonies for the youth programs and things like that. But I still always had that imposter syndrome,
Ah,
where I was doing things, but I really wasn't sure that I was going to be able to do them. And then if I did accomplish whatever it was, there was always this sense that, boy, I just by the skin of my teeth succeeded at that, or wow, that's really amazing that I succeeded at that. Not really owning the fact that I actually did it. And
uh-huh.
I don't think that as I've gotten older, I've come to think that our culture doesn't really feed that in people like me. And that my imposter syndrome isn't just a lack of confidence. It's a world that keeps telling us over and over again that, wow, we're so surprised that you succeeded, instead of course you succeeded. And for other people, it's, of course they did well. But for Black women and other minority women, it's often a sense of, wow, we're so excited and pleased that you managed to succeed. I think it's only in the last maybe 10 years that I have started owning my own success.
Uh-huh.
Someone once had to tell me when she said, "Oh, that's so great that you've accomplished that." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know how I did it." And she looked at me and she's like, "Well, I know how you did it. You did it because you're good." And I was almost embarrassed to
Mhm.
own that. Part of it's the way I grew up. Part of it's the church background I had, which where of course we thank God for everything, but there's a sense that, oh well, that was a blessing that you didn't actually work for any of that. Somehow it just happened to you,
Mhm.
and this kind of impression that was always given to me that humility means never really owning your strength, as
Hmm.
opposed to humility meaning, you know what, I
Interesting.
recognize what I don't have and what I don't know. And there's a lot I don't have and there's a lot I don't know. But there is something I do know.
Mhm.
I was always afraid to own that. Now I recognize the stuff I do because I'm good. I'm not good at everything,
Right,
but there
right.
is something I am good at.
Yeah.
And they pay me to do it.
Do it.
And they're glad I'm there. And they wouldn't be able to do it as well if I wasn't there. So I've really had to come to own my own sense of belonging. And when I start to feel less like I belong, to catch myself and say, no, I do belong. I belong right where I am. And you guys should be glad to have me because I do a good job. That's
Well,
been a hard thing.
Well, I wouldn't cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's been a hard thing to keep owning because that message is still out there that, wow, you somehow made it through affirmative action. I mean, we think you're good and all, but that's how you got here. And boy, did somebody else miss out because you got it. And just, we appreciate you, but there's always this underlying sense of like, wow, we're so surprised that you're so good. And that is the message that keeps trying to erode my sense of, no, I do belong here. This is where I belong. And I have to continuously fight that because the message for Black women, minority women is the same all over the place. And even when people appreciate me, I still sense that surprise.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be there. No one should be surprised that I'm there.
So how long have you been in your field?
Well, I've been an attorney since 1995.
Okay.
But I've been a federal prosecutor since 1999, and I have been a supervisor in my office since 2011. So I supervise folks. I train new prosecutors, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years.
Well, of course, given our climate today and years past, people would probably find being a prosecutor something that they would stay away from, or even becoming a lawyer. But you have found a direction that you are working at right now, and that is embracing who you are, like you said, and then mentoring others to come into the field. So talk to me about that. They had the we should be that we seek, right? And so in order to get justice, we have to become a part of the justice system. So talk to me about how you are making that happen.
Well, for me, the point of being a prosecutor is the power. Because the decision making is done from the prosecutor's perspective. I mean, defense attorneys perform a wonderful service. It's a constitutional service. I absolutely applaud people who join that part and represent criminal defendants because it's a necessary part of the program. But prosecutors are the people who are making the decisions. Mm-hmm. And particularly in the federal realm, prosecutors have a lot of influence over investigations, who we charge, what we charge people with. These are really important decisions, and they affect, the individual defendant in a way that a defense attorney really can't. So I think you need diversity on the power side, diversity in this decision-making side, because we do exercise a lot of discretion. And I don't want one type of person exercising that discretion. I look at cases differently than some other people with different backgrounds. I can exercise my discretion in a way that is informed by my own experience. And if I think something's unfair, if I think that someone doesn't need that charge because of their age, because they have very little criminal background, there's really no reason to go to the mat on this person, I have the discretion to join my voice to the decision-making process. So I try to encourage people, young people in particular, people in law school, when they're looking at the criminal justice system, to think of themselves as a participant on the power exercising side. And that is the side of the prosecutor. We can't just avoid that because we want to help Black people. Uh-huh. You help Black people by being on both sides. And that voice is a critical part. When I'm training new prosecutors, I'm not just training them into like, this is what you do. These are the statutes we use. This is the criminal prosecution process. I'm also trying to teach them how to think about the people they're prosecuting, how to look at them and not just look at them through one lens of, wow, this person has a long criminal history. They've been in trouble since they were 14. It's like, no. Actually take a look at how they've been in trouble since they've been 14.
Interesting.
What have they been in trouble with? Are these the sort of things that give us grave concern? Or is this just someone who keeps finding themselves the subject of too much police attention and
Ah,
constantly getting, every 6 months, something little's popping up where, in another community, a young person may be doing the same thing, but they're not getting over policed the way that this Black community is. So
oh,
so it gives us a way of thinking about what we're doing. And that's one of the things I'm trying to train people to do, to think critically and use their discretion wisely. If everything is not a nail that we have to hammer, we have to use discretion to determine if this is something that is important to us and important for our community, important for our society, or if we're actually just doing more damage. That's the kind of way I want to bring my experience, not legal experience, but my experience as a human
human being.
into the process.
Yeah. And so again, you are a federal prosecutor, but right now you are currently in what position? What role?
Well, my official title is Chief of Appeals and Training. So, so once someone is convicted in the district court, if the case is appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I manage that process, and then I also am responsible for the initial training of all prosecutors we hire in the Eastern District of California. So that'd be in the Sacramento, Fresno, and Bakersfield offices.
Well, revisiting what you just talked about, teaching people how to think, and not telling people what to think, but how to think, and I think that's important. We talked about previously in regards to the lens that you see things and the lens that others may see things, and using that discretion accordingly. For example, you said someone else may look at a situation with African Americans being over policing and continuously criminalize their actions, right? You look at it and say, no, that's what this community do. This is part of their survival. You look at it and you criminalize it, and I'm looking at it as survival. So talk to me how you bring about that conversation among your peers.
Very carefully. I think because what doesn't work in my position is to say, look, everybody's been too tough on this kid. He's only 22, and so we need to go easy on him. Those sorts of conversations simply don't penetrate. People are prosecutors, and they're looking for what they believe is creating greater safety in the community, getting someone who's a criminal off the streets, someone who's caught with a gun, they're dangerous, these sorts of things. What I'm trying to introduce are just a different way of looking at the person. So I do it mostly with questions.
Gotcha.
Okay, I do see lengthy criminal history here. But during when this person was a minor, like what did those crimes look like? What were the underlying offenses? How close together are they?
Mm-hmm.
How much time has this person spent in juvie? These kind of questions
cause a holistic approach, a holistic view.
They start answering those questions, and we're adding facts.
Gotcha.
And those were facts that people weren't stopping to think about before. I'm not necessarily changing people's minds or changing people's view of that individual, but what I want to do is add what I consider to be salient facts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't always end up with that much of a difference in the view of the individual, because at age 18, they may have just gone like, super south direction.
But like you said, there's a benefit for diversity to be in the field of on the judicial system, on the prosecution side, just as it is on the defense side. We can't be on the outside, that's for sure. As they say, if you're going to make a difference, you got to be in the ring, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we need more people, because the more individuals you have from various minority communities, it's just the feeling is different. I mean, it's different for me being in a room with like 4 white people and being in a room with 2 or maybe even 3 Black people in the room. It changes the dynamic in a way that I find difficult to quantify, but it definitely feels different. And having that, reasonable amount of presence can change everything. And that's really what is needed in a lot of environments, I think.
I know we have Oh my goodness. I know right now I am following Attorney Christian Clark confirmation to work in President Biden's Department of Justice department. And because again, I think it's important her experience that she brings to the table, her familiarity, the lens in which she sees justice. And so I can't see us not wanting to make that a career opportunity, you know? And so that's why I wanted you to speak about that. But let's talk more about Camille the person, Camille the person, Camille the person. You so you became a prosecutor. You're a mother of two and working from home, and you're juggling just like everybody else is juggling your work and school. So, what is it that keeps you awake at night in this environment that we're in, coming through this whole 10, 11, 12 months of the pandemic? Like, what keeps you up at night? What wakes you up in the morning?
Well, I think the most the heaviest stressor I feel right now is around school. I This has been such a traumatic, I think, time for my kids, and even to the extent that my son is doing a little bit better, just kind of dealing with the emotional impact.
Mm,
He's 16, and there's a tension and all kinds of conflict. He's doing a little bit better with conflict. I still feel like he lost a year
mm,
academically. He has some challenges academically anyway, and it's just been so much so much time.
yeah.
I think so much time lost. And for my daughter, who is like a super social person. She's extremely extroverted. She needs people. She needs attention. She's draining in the household if it's just us because she constantly needs someone paying attention to her, um, even if it's like for like little snippets of time. But she needs her friends, and so she has really struggled a lot. And she struggled with motivation. She struggled with discipline. And I feel like she's kind of her eighth grade year has kind of been a lost year.
Mm,
And I know that's true for a lot of kids,
yeah.
but it worries me for what it means for them long term, particularly because my son's only 16. He's got
Yeah.
like 2 years of school left, and this has been incredibly disruptive to his progress. So that worries me. I figure it's all going to be okay. They're still young enough, and they're gonna find their way. But I feel like in some ways their way is going to be harder because of the pandemic. And you always want life to be smoother. They don't necessarily learn a lot from a smooth life, but I would love for them to still have one.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, this is going to have a long term impact in regards to just generational. You know,
Yeah.
How this generation and the next generation makes or the generation coming up behind them make decisions on why they make the decisions they do. And every generation has been impacted by some traumatic experience. And so I think you're absolutely justified in your concern because I don't have any kids. But if I had a kid, because my son passed away, but I worry because as a mother, you just have that inherent concern about um, their future, and everything you do is built around them, first of all. And so there's that awareness that I have that says, so what could we think about doing now to help when we come out of this, as opposed to waiting till we come out of this? And so those are I don't have answers. I'm just saying I have questions, and so considering all things, I think that we have to remain hopeful. I have to believe that everything's going to be all right. But at the same time, I have to be realistic about the fact that what could we do as individuals? What can we share as ideas that has worked for you um, in this time frame? Because you talked about the challenges. Did you have to make any adjustment that you find that, oh, okay, had this not happened, you would never probably did certain things?
Actually, I think my most important adjustment has been releasing my kids to their own lives.
Mm.
I do tend to be I tend to be a controlling sort of person because I like control in my own life. I'm trying to control my own existence, recognizing that in the most important ways I do not. But that didn't stop me from trying to control my own existence and trying to control my children. Um, I had to let go
Mm.
of that.
That's hard, Camille. That's hard.
Yes, because they are their own people. They are different people. We don't share a genetic connection. My children are adopted. There's
Mm.
a lot of stuff from my kids that I look at and I say, oh my gosh, you didn't get that from growing up in this household. So I don't know where that came from. But, and then there's a lot of things that they got from this household that I'm like, ooh, I wish I had gone differently. But I recognize that they have their own path, and it's
Mm.
not a path I will create for them. It's the path that they will take, because I recognize in my own life that I have walked my path.
Mhm.
And there have been lots of things in my past which were unfortunate and which were hurtful. But those things made me who I am today.
Yes, yeah.
And if many of those traumatic experiences that had not happened, I wouldn't be me. And who I am today is, in my mind, kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And I've got experiences that help me help others. So
Amen.
I can look at them and say, okay, you're going to have a path, and it might not be the path that I choose for you, but somehow along that path, you are going to gain experiences that will be valuable to you and others. So I'm not going to keep you or try to keep you from having these experiences and traveling this path.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to be the person who's like there to support them along the way, but not to control it.
So, yeah, because the good and the bad of our experiences make us who we are, right? I mean,
Yes.
that is not something profound if me saying it today, but it was profound when I was walking in my career path. You know what I mean? You run into these bad experiences, and of course, nobody wants to run into bad experiences. And then every time we do, we look at it as a failure. We start putting labels on it, and people start putting labels on us, and they start boxing us in. And I think that it was freeing for me when I came to the revelation that the good and the bad makes us who we are. Um, and I think that is absolutely great advice, like you said, to have that conversation. I'm not going to control you, but I do want to be supportive of you. And so I think that makes a difference. When we talk about diversity in the workplace, I think about that in regards to the different professions that we all work in. Some say it's hard conversation, some say it's honest conversation, some say um, um, I'm not the one to help you figure out how to have the conversation. So how has that evolved? Describe to me what that has been, because I look at it when I talk about um, eloquent rage, being passed over or something, and having a conversation about it, speaking about it, not internalizing it, but addressing it. So I think in my career field, it actually helped pave the way for me because there was some predictability that came with me. Like I didn't have nobody, no one gave me a handbook in the military. I did not know. I did not have a back brief or up brief or a pre-brief. And so I was learning this thing career-wise and progression as I go. But uh, I have learned from my leaders that I work with and that I work alongside with that they don't think about things in the same manner in which we do as a Black woman or as a leader or as a someone with some education. They just keep us in this box. And finally, I come across one of my mentors. I call him my mentor, but he was really like my supervisor, and he became an awesome leader for me. And we still communicate today. And he's constantly reminding me. He said, "Listen, I did. There was an incident. We talked about you're mentoring me, but yet you're passing over me for something. So, it's one thing to say that we support women in a specific field, but it's another thing to show what does that support look like practically? What have you done to further that path? Saying it and doing it are two different things. And that was a conversation I had to have. And finding the right word wasn't always that easy, but because we knew each other, what our conversation was one of honesty and humility, so that we don't make that mistake again, so that we're not stumbling through this thing called leadership. And so I have to wonder in your field, uh, how does that conversation take place in your office in regards to diversity and eloquent rage and being labeled, and especially now that you, like you said, you're no longer having that imposter syndrome.
Uh, well, it's something that I am working my way back through. I think I had to learn a little bit about how to do this in this environment. I think the first time I kind of put myself out there I was excited about this chance to insert myself and kind of support change in my office. And I let my excitement run away with me, so that I came in with the attitude of like, hey, I've learned some new things. We should be doing things differently. Let me tell you all about it. And it blew up in my face, because I came with an attitude of, I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to do things better than the way we do them now. And the people I was talking to were the people who had been doing it the way that we did it then. And the offense I caused was unanticipated by me. I should have realized that when you sit down and talk to someone and say, you've been doing it all wrong, we can do it better, that wasn't going to land well. I learned from that experience. And now my attitude is, boy, look at the time. This is a moment of opportunity.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's look forward to how we can do things, because now the word is systemic. This is the word, systemic. And that's what we want to ride the coattails on. We have a chance now to make systemic change. Not that it was bad the way it was before, not that people were not trying hard and being inclusive or looking for diversity, but now we have the chance to adopt some systemic change to the way we do things, which takes it out of the personal, and really grounds it in a place where these people who, for the most part, do appreciate diversity, would like to create an inclusive environment, kind of put them in the minds that long past you, we can create something that will live on, that can be dynamic, that can be transparent to the outside. We have a chance to do something big and systemic. And that's kind of the way I approach it now. People are a lot more open
to having conversations now, right?
Yes, about a systemic change, as opposed to our office does not support diversity, or our office does not support inclusion. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to feel that. No one wants to feel attacked. Yeah. But we want to feel like we're building something, and that's the direction that I've kind of gone in now.
Well, I think about reading more. You know what I mean? There's so much to read. There's so much writing going on. I'm not talking about the writing on the political spectrum as a whole. I'm talking about Black authors writing about our experiences, and helping us to understand our history and understand, the more I learn about my history, the more provoking it is for me to include myself and to get involved into different things, and not just one path. Like we're not monolithic. I mean, I can have a nonprofit over here and I can have a for-profit over here, But I think the question is, who are we helping and what opportunities are we taking advantage of? So I said that to ask you, what book are you reading?
Well, I'm reading Slavery by Another Name right now. I didn't bring it down with me, so I can't remember the name of the author.
Okay.
But this is, I was inspired to read this book as I was listening to a lecture on post-Reconstruction society
Mm-hmm.
and the ways in which Black people, not just Black men and Black women, but many Black men and Black families were kept in a system post emancipation that looked a whole lot like slavery.
Slavery.
For me, learning these things helped me understand the truth of how Black people have existed in this country post Civil War. Because a lot of people have the idea, well, everybody was emancipated. What's your problem now?
Right,
Why?
right,
Why does Black society look the way it does in this country? It's because you're lazy. It's because you don't want. It's because you don't value education. It's because you have all these broken families. Like, people have all of these
all these
reasons why.
descriptive words of why, reasons why.
Yes, and they're very much blaming the victim, because the idea here that victimization took place post emancipation is new to a lot of people. There are a ton of books about this time. There's really no excuse not to know, except that most people aren't taught. And this was this time of something that looks so close to slavery, in the Reconstruction era, fascinated me. And I'd heard about the book. I wanted to learn more because I want to know more about my history. But really, it is the history. It's not my history. And it's not Black history. It's the history of America, because it's white and Black people involved in this history. And if we had a better understanding of our own history in America, I think we would have a better understanding about why our country is the way it is today. There is just so much ignorance, and much of it is my own, but our country as a whole, there is just so much ignorance about our true history.
Yeah.
That it's not surprising that people can walk around and say the most ignorant things. Everything post January 6th. I mean, it's just, there is so much ignorance and lack of a lack of understanding of our civil society that it's distressing to me. But I want to educate myself, and Slavery by Another Name is a part of me doing that.
We know. So, the author is Blackman. Let's see. Oh yeah, Douglas Blackman. Yeah, and so I don't know where I read it at. I don't know if it was in his book, was my first introduction, but you're right. Slavery by Another Name, long after Emancipation Proclamation was signed. And so you're right. People look at it and go, they look at the totality of it and say, there was slavery and then there wasn't slavery. That's kind of where they look at it, like it was a clear line, right? There definitely was not a clear line when you start reading our history. And this book was one of them. It highlighted how people who were accused of crimes that weren't even crime, but they were titled as crime, and then furtherance in the judicial system, and sold into slaves. Let me get this right: charged and put into jail, fined, fees, right? But because they didn't have the money to pay the fees, a 30-day sentence now became a 1-year sentence, and in that 1 year, others could buy you for labor, or buy. They could be sold to you so that you're paying their fees over time, but yet they're doing labor. So slavery by another name. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I just kind of thought I could put the book down. And so I'm still reading it. But I have to take a breath because I have to protect my little heart. Here I had to cover my mind. But I think it's important that we find books that we can read that enlightens us. So what's your life again? And talking about the pandemic and talking about this being a season of opportunity and talking about representation matters. I think those are some critical conversations we need, an honest conversation we need to have more of. Because how are we as individuals want to and plan to, and what are we doing to influence the future, right? Like after the pandemic, what are we doing right now as opposed to waiting to come out? What are we doing right now? And so that's why I think it's important that we read and be aware of our surroundings and our environment. I am absolutely but I shouldn't be surprised by the African American communities, how we have responded and not been like, well, it's the pandemic, I can't go out and protest, right? Because I am just grateful for the fact that we as a people understand what we've come through, you know, what we've come through. And because of that, because of what our ancestors have done, we too can do it. We can't ask for peace and then not have a right to exercise peaceful protest. And they want to call it peaceful protest. I want to call it eloquent rage. And I want to call it the voice of the unheard. Let's just call it what it is, you know? And so that's kind of where my awareness is right now, is always thinking, how can I make a difference? What can I do to make a difference? And so that's why I want to keep having these conversations, talking to women who are out there doing the work, you know. And so what else would you like for us to know in regards to the pathway that you're going to be doing? What's life after? I don't know. How long are you going to be an attorney? Are you ever thought about life after an attorney?
That's what I spend about half my time doing. I think I'm constantly thinking about my life after this career. I'm 52 now, and so I have fewer years to be an attorney than I have, than I have been an attorney, and I do have a second act for myself.
I like that, a second act.
Absolutely, because I would like to retire young enough to have another career. I want to be a spiritual director,
Okay.
and I've done some study, but I really want to retire so that I can full time begin my education and have a career that is so very different than the one I had,
yeah.
but that I look forward to. And I do, and it's part of what I do now. I mean, one of the things I do just as a human is I listen to people. I do that at my job. And even during the pandemic, people will call to talk because they recognize that I'm someone who will listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't tell people what to do. I ask questions that people can hopefully answer to give themselves the answer that they need, because I believe the answer is within them. This is what my experience of spiritual direction. I have my own spiritual director who I meet with monthly. And I want to do this full time. I want to be in a position where I am helping people find the answers within themselves. However they want to identify that, whether it is the whisper of the Holy Spirit or looking at their own life experience. I call it, for myself, finding the jewels in the dung heap. I don't use dung. I use a more profane word than dung heap, but I won't use it here. But looking back at my own life and some of the trauma and really difficult experiences that I've had that I haven't wanted to examine because I didn't want to touch them because they were painful. But going back to them, looking through them and finding the jewels in them, the things that I learned, the things that changed in me, that made me who I am and that made me strong and that made me resilient, finding those things and helping other people do the same with their own lives, recognizing that their lives have lessons to teach us if we will turn around and look back at the things that were painful, as opposed to running away from them and trying to act like they didn't happen when they're still there. But we can deal with them in healing ways. I want to be a part of that process for other people, just as my spiritual director has been part of that process for me. And it's a way of passing along the blessings. And I just look forward to that. I think about that all the time. I do what I do. I'm glad I have my job. I enjoy much of what I do, but I so look forward to my next act and the opportunities I will have then to really dig into other people's spiritual healing and development.
That is so refreshing. You know what I mean? To be able to talk about, and we not say refreshing, because we go through our career, and somewhere we get to the end of it, and that's when we start thinking about it, right? as opposed to planning for it. And I have to agree with you. The spiritual journey that I've been on simultaneously with my career journey has been one that has taught me so much. You know, I learned from my personal experiences and encounters, but the spiritual journey, like you said, looking forward to just having a second act where you can just do what you want to do to give people hope, you know, how to face life in a healing way, I think is how you put it. Facing life in a healing way. I think it's important. Otherwise, um, what would be the worth of the wounds that we have encountered or these scarred hearts that we walk around with? They would just call us wounded soldiers, right? But I don't mind showing my wounds. I don't mind talking about my scars. You know what I mean? What I have come to realize is that had it not been for those things, you know, we say it in a certain way. We say, had it not been for Jesus in my life, I don't know where I would be. Exactly. Had you not gone through the trouble that you went through or the challenges that you went through, I would not know who I am and that I could stand strong and that I could make it through the storm or that I know how, that I had the strength, you know, and of the endurance. And that's what I'm really grateful for is just looking back on my life and going, wow, how did I navigate that? You know, and how would I navigate those same situations now? But it's because of those situations that I'm able to walk in confidence. You know what I mean? And that's why I was so intrigued by you over the years, is because I was out there like actively involved. I had like conversation. I was always having a conversation of a challenge with, in my profession. And then when I get around like our friends, we would meet up on Sunday and we would get around and have these relived experience conversations about our week or just life in general. And weren't they like the best Sundays?
Yes. I mean, that's that, you know, that time. I mean, we weren't intentionally creating that kind of circle where we were regurgitating the week and then finding the healing and healing each other in it.
Right.
But that is what some groups actually consciously set out to do. We just happen to do it often in Joy's living room. But that kind of healing conversation where we're expressing the heat or rage or
Yeah.
disappointment of what we've gone through and having other people lean into it with us.
Yeah. With
So
no
we don't
filter.
carry it as the wound. That process is like so, I think, important to how we support each other. That's why you have to have that kind of circle
Yeah.
when you're dealing with that kind of stress and and real trauma that we experience in our lives on a weekly basis. But I really think it is critical as we're going through that process that we are recognizing where the lingering wounds are and
Mm,
knowing that, okay, daily, this is my struggle. Daily, this is the thing I overcome. For me, it's a fear of failure, fears of rejection. All of these things are deeply rooted from childhood.
mm.
But today, I recognize those things continue to live inside of me, but I don't have to be at all times hampered by them. I mean, sometimes they pop up and they may cause me to think a certain way or say a
Right.
certain thing or downplay myself in a way or draw away. But I recognize them and I can say to myself, oh, that's what's happening. This is an opportunity for me to overcome. I'm taking this as an opportunity for me to overcome. I am not going to be quiet, or I'm not going to take this as a rejection. That person that has no idea how I am receiving their statement. And you
Ah,
know what? And so I'm not going to take it that way. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to re engage. Despite how I may feel, I'm going to re engage. It's really about constantly reaffirming, and
yeah.
those group settings get you ready for that next week of continuous reaffirmations. And then each day I'm reaching for those affirmations. It's a really I think it's an important part. We cannot go it alone
No.
and think that we are going to be able to refresh ourselves each weekend by ourselves to somehow tackle another week of real trauma, or just people behaving badly, or just hearing things that cause us pain. We really do need that support circle of
Well, I
sister
tell you,
friends.
it was a life-saving circle, right? It was, you're absolutely right. We didn't plan it. We didn't say, hey, let's do this. We showed up there, and we was, I always laugh. I said to we talking about our friend Dr. Joy, whose house was our safe haven, where we would just migrate to and put our feet up and watch a story or cook or talk about others cooking, who could and who couldn't cook. And I know my lane. I have grown in that area, since I retired. But it was so rich for me because I would, like Dr. Joy said, she wouldn't, had she never known I was in the military, she would have never known me to be in the military because I never wore my uniform. Did she? After being in service 32 years and been around her for at least 14, 15 of them, she didn't see me in my uniform until I retired, when she came to my retirement ceremony. Because it was either on a hanger in my closet or I had changed. But I needed that separation. You know what I mean? I didn't know I needed it, but I know I needed to get there in that real time, And looking back over it, those are the days that I think, because we were able to have a laughter about life, we didn't take life with that salt poured in the wound the way it was intended. Like, I mean, so many scriptures have I looked back and said, whoa, it wasn't for that scripture, I had to preach to myself out that where others would intended it for evil, but God intended it for good, And then looking at it now, I mean, I've been retired now since what, 2012? See, time just going by. And I go, wow, 9 years now. But I look at what made me, what helped me to survive, the surviving acts, you know what I mean? The surviving opportunities, or the thriving. And you're right. I think it's great that we reflect back on them now, not to rehash them or to reveal anybody's wrongdoing or verbal abuse or bad leadership, but it's also so that we don't repeat that and that we help others not to repeat. And I think that is the valuable lesson that I've learned, And what they say, Camille, you say you're 54, you're getting ready, you're thinking about your next
Well,
act.
I'm 52,
Uh-uh.
not quite 54 yet.
I'm sorry. That's me. I'm 64. That's me. Um, but I think it's important, like you said, thinking about your next act. I didn't look at it like my next act, but I do look at it as like, okay, I don't want to be doing this for a lifetime, right? I don't want to be. I think 32 years went by quick, but it didn't go by quick, And I can't believe I did 32 years when I only intended to do 4, right? But I'm grateful for the opportunities that it had taught me. At the same token, I am absolutely grateful for the opportunity now I have to freely live on the spiritual journey without having to divide my time up. Not that I was always doing ministry, but I was in uniform and I think I did more ministry in uniform than I did my job. My job actually shared the pathway of my ministry. Like I couldn't do one without the other. Let me just say that, because I worked in the medical field, be it on the administrative side, but I was engaging with deployment patients and deploying people and just people in general. People are walking, and what I don't want is people to walk around in silent pain, not dealing with the reality of the present. If you heard, let's have a conversation about that. Listen, we all have our days, where I want my nights to be shorter and my days to be longer. Let me just tell you that, And yet I'm grateful for the reflection time, because then I know how to handle it. Like you said, it's a reminder and an affirmation of what I come through and who I am today. And I think that is important for us to lift each other up, which is why I wanted to talk to you so much anyway. It's because you were like, to me, the person who was so defined in the room, right? Your presence was just so defined, but yet it was a quiet presence, right? But every time I showed up, you were there. So we all knew that we were coming there for a reason. We probably couldn't put a name on it, but we've gone through some programs in regards to group gatherings and rites of passage gatherings and just cooking gatherings and movie watching, and it was very therapeutic, and I don't think we valued it enough back then. Like I know we were showing up there. Now today we could describe why, right? And I always the tease. I said, I can't believe all these years you never changed your phone number. You never changed the lock on the door, and we could always come in, you know. And I think that was great. And so I like to always remind her of that whenever we're talking, and we talk weekly. So I'm just glad to have met you, Camille. I just want you to know that it was like you were a very presence in the room for me in regards to the career path that you chose. I mean, let me just say, I studied for the LSAT. So this is not just out of the blue. I studied for the LSAT over the years I was in the military. I wanted to be, of course, we all want to be a nurse when we was young, right? But as I grew older, I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be everything that was controversial. I wanted to go into politics. I wanted to go into ministry, and I wanted to be an attorney. And I didn't know that. One of my philosophy teachers said, "Do you realize that everything you've picked is just controversial? Do you just gravitate to that?" She said, "But you have a heck of a resume to be able to stand in some tough places. You know, if you look back over it from a woman's perspective." I had not. You know, she was. That's why That's why she was a professor then, and I was a student. But I never forgot that I just gravitated to those things. But it also is the reason why I think that the more we learn, the more we can speak up and advocate. It's just when we don't know something, like I did not know about the missing persons law, right? But I learned what was missing from that law, and I learned that it was antiquated, and I learned that okay, it was intended then for that, and I learned interpretation of law, you know, and so I just jumped in feet first, forced in, not by choice, but I had to, and I'm glad I did. You know what I mean? I'm glad when I look over my journey and I look at that period of my life, having to navigate my pain, yet navigate the law so that it wouldn't happen again. I could have chosen to just kind of, or I did choose for a while to just kind of say, okay, Lord, you might as well just take me now because I'm no more good to this earth, you know. But when I realized that Lord was not going to do that, then I mean He had a purpose for me, and I needed to get about my Father's business. And so I always come back to those moments of how I kept going, how I kept putting one feet in front of the other, and learning about law, and learning about politics. Um, but I took that LSAT. I didn't take the I studied for the LSAT. I took it 2 times. I liked it. It didn't like me. Um, you know, I was great at the game part. I was poor at the writing part. The paragraph. I think I always overthinking things, right? But so I have to live. I have to say I lived vicariously through you all those years. You being an attorney, wondering what it would be like. But I wanted to be an attorney for one reason. Let me just put that out there. It was so that I could help those in my neighborhood, in my community who could not afford lawyers. That's really what my foundation for striving to be an attorney was. And I think about it like maybe once a week, like given the times that we're in, I go, okay, I could go to law school. I could be done in 3 years, and I have to go over here and I have to probably do a specialty. So that's 5 years. What would I would be a 69-year-old lawyer jumping in the field. By the time I finish that journey, but I think about it because I think it's something that is important in our life. And if I don't have any regrets, I mean, I have friends like you who I can talk law with. I know how to be able to just listen to a lot, my lawyer friends, and so I'm grateful. I just want you to know that for years I have often been able to live vicariously through you. You know, I really have because I'm like, boy, she is doing the job over there. Because we all learned from our career path. And so I'm glad I got to know you. And I was just intrigued in regards to how over time life as a lawyer experiences had influenced you, who you were. You know, you don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to live in that, what was it? Imposter syndrome. I'm going to have to put that one down. You need to write about that, girl.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for what you said. I'm glad that you could live vicariously through me and save yourself getting another degree. And I think the most important thing that I have learned recently about the imposter syndrome is that it is not simply based on our low self-esteem. It is a message that is constantly fed to us that we really don't belong here. And if you got here through some way, and we're proud of you for getting here, but you really don't belong. And it's a message that our society continues to send to us. And when I recognized that it wasn't just me and, my low self-esteem and me always wondering, it's like, God, should I really be here? But really, it was the message that everyone was giving me that you really don't belong here. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. No, I'm not taking that on as your message to me. I absolutely really do belong here, because if I didn't belong here, I wouldn't be here. And who belongs here more than me? I mean, really, is there someone who's entitled to my position and I have stolen it from them? I mean, these ideas, they prey on our minds, and they cause us to feel like there's just something not quite right about our success, and that's just I'm just rejecting that.
Absolutely.
In my matureness now, I reject that idea. I am here because I earned my place here.
Yeah.
And it didn't belong to somebody else, and I came in and stole it. It wasn't this white person. This position didn't belong to a white man.
Exactly.
And I pushed him out. This position belonged to me. I'm supposed to be here. And if you don't have it, that's because you don't belong here. And that sense of belonging is the basis of my sense of inclusion. I want to build more of that for other people, because I do not want to be, right now I'm the only Black woman attorney in the Eastern District of California for the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Wait, say it again. You are the only Black woman.
I'm the only Black woman assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of California currently. We have had more at certain times during my career, but right now I am the only Black woman AUSA, and that just should not be. So I'm looking for ways to make sure that other people can experience that sense of inclusion, but it is not that we are taking something away from someone who deserves it.
Yeah,
it's like we're getting what we deserve. We're getting the spot.
We need more. And like you said, I'm glad you're doing the work you're doing. We need more people to be able to take an interest into becoming an attorney. And so prayerfully, those of you who are listening out there, that you have friends and family members who are looking for a career path, I tell you, we need more Black women in the legal field, in the attorney field. We need them running for office. We need them AD, the district attorney, DAs. And so I follow that conversation along, because I absolutely agree with that. We got to be a part of this system if we want to make systematic change. And that's kind of how I put it in a nutshell. You cannot make change outside the ring, and complaining doesn't help unless you're in the ring. You got to be able to do something. So I'm grateful for you, Camil. I want to thank you for taking this opportunity to let's just sit down and have candid conversations. I love it. So just stand by as we say goodbye to everyone. If you want to have questions for Camil, you can go to my Facebook page and post them, and we'll be able to engage you in the future and ongoing. And also check out the YouTube, my YouTube channel, same name, and you can review this video. Great conversation. I really, really appreciate you, Camil, with the imposter syndrome, girl. That just resonates with me. I never gave it a name, but I do now.
Well, that's not the name I gave it. It's someone else's name for it.
That's right. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun, and I really appreciate that. And I think this is important information for people to understand that this is not just something I do. I'm very methodical about who it is I'm having conversations with, because I wanted to be able to impact someone's thought, someone's life, and even bring about some type of positive change. And I don't know what that is. I'm not calling it out for that. I'm just simply saying this is not for nothing. Let me just say that. And so I really appreciate you, and I love you. And just stand by so I can love on you some more. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I will hope you go back and review and listen again. Blessings.
Thank you.